Hi everyone and welcome to Blackwood N layout. I had a request from Evan Fraser who asked if I could show how I have fitted my point motors to the points on Blackwood N layout. So this is a sort of a how-to video. Now I'll say at the outset, this is the way I do it. I'm not saying this is the correct way. There will be umpteen methods of fitting point motors to the Pico points, but this is the method that I use and I found it to be pretty successful on the layout. So what I've got here is a code 55 point sitting on a mocked up bit of baseboard. It's lightly pinned to the baseboard, it's not fully pinned, and obviously the track would be coming out from either at this end here and obviously the two roads on this side. So once you have got all your track and you know exactly where it's going to go, you can then decide, okay, we'll fit the point motor. So the very first thing that I actually do is I draw around the point. You can use either a pencil or a fine tip felt pen, anything just to draw around, so that when you remove the point you will actually know exactly where the point was when you come to put it back in. So drawn round the point, and the next thing will be to decide on the tie bar here what side you're going to mount the motor. Now the motor will obviously be underneath, and on the tie bar there are two locating holes, one on either side. So the decision is entirely up to you as to which locating hole you actually use for the point motor. The reason they give you two is that the point, depending on where you put the point on the actual baseboard, the point could be close to baseboard framing, and it may be that only one of the holes you can actually use anyway. So they give you, Pico give you a hole on either side, and it's up to you as to which one you actually choose. Before I lift the point, what I will also do is I've decided to actually use this side of the point to mount the point motor, and obviously the tie bar here will travel, and what I do is I pull the tie bar over as far as it can go, and because it's going to be mounted on this side, I will draw around the tie bar, because that's the maximum travel that the tie bar can actually make. And at the same time use a pin vise or something with a sharp point and put it through the actual locating hole on the tie bar, just to make a little mark. Once that's done, you can then take the pins back out and you can remove the point. And what I can then do is I can now drill a hole. Now I've marked the centre of the hole with the pin vise there, and the size of the hole that you need to drill here, the purists will obviously tell you to try and make the hole as small as possible. I have gone the opposite way, and I have actually used a 10mm, which is very, very large, a 10mm drill bit, and I drill the hole. So I'll go away and do that, and then we can come back and we can carry on with the next part. Okay, so I have cut the hole into the baseboard. So as you can see, a 10mm hole is relatively big. So once you've done that, make sure you take a needle file, which is like this here, and make sure that you file all the rough edges round the actual hole, so there are no sharp bits of plywood or whatever your baseboard is made of. It just makes it a lot easier and a lot neater, and it saves you getting scalps and things into your fingers. So once that's done, you can then put the point motor back. So the point motor can be sat back in, And obviously because you've marked everything, you know exactly where the point motor is going to go, or the point rather. You can obviously repin the track again. Don't fully pin it, just lightly pin it. And once you've done that, you can then think about actually fitting the actual point motor. Now, obviously I have used Pico PL10E, that's with the extended pins. I don't actually have a PL10E spare. I did have a PL10, which is just exactly the same, except it's got a shorter pin. Now, when you get the PL10, whether it's the PL10 or PL10E, doesn't matter, there are 3 sets of locating pins on the top of the point motor. Now, the 2 central ones you don't actually require. Now, I have actually folded these over already. They obviously, if I fold this one back, they obviously come exactly the same way as the outer ones. Take a pair of pliers and simply bend it over, making sure that the pin, if I bring that back, the pin is actually in between the 2 bent over tabs that you've just done. What you then require to do is fix this to the underside, the point motor to the underside of the baseboard. And to do that, there's a couple of ways it can be done, but the most common one is to use the Pico mounting plate, which is just essentially a rectangular piece of plastic. It comes with obviously some brass screws, and on the underneath of the plate you should be able to see 3 sets of holes, rectangular holes, and obviously the larger rectangular hole in the middle here, which is where the pin goes. Very, very simple. The point motor simply clips in, or it doesn't clip in, it pushes in, and then you'll bend over these tabs to secure it. So if I push that in, it goes in like that. So you end up with point motor underneath and the mounting plate on the top. You should be able to see, just if I point there, you should be able to see the, oops, bring that back, if I can pick this up, yep. You should just see the tabs just pointing through. If you take a small screwdriver and just put it in at the back and push these tabs over, they'll bend over readily, very easily, and that will actually secure this mounting plate. As you can see, the mounting plate at the moment, it moves. So when you've bent these tabs over, this mounting plate, you do not want it moving. You want it to be absolutely fixed, solid. Okay. Once that is done, you're then going to take the point motor and you're actually going to dry fit it, because bearing in mind that this is would be a PL10E, you will obviously have a large extended pin. Now you'll take the point motor and you'll obviously go underneath the baseboard, and what you want to do first of all is mark the amount of pin that you need to remove. So you need to obviously put it underneath. You're not going to fix it or any way, you just want the extended pin to come through the actual hole here. Once it's come through, you can hold it in position with your hand, and then with I use a felt tip pen, you can mark the amount of excess pin that you have, and then simply remove it back out, and using something like a Dremel you can cut off the excess amount of pin. Once that's done, you're then ready to actually put the point motor in to the actual point, or fix it to the point. Now, before I would do that, I would advise soldering any wires onto these tags. So this is a solenoid motor. So on one side you want to have a single wire which will link both sides here, and that's basically giving the power to the solenoid. And then you would have 2 separate wires on the other side, which will give the basically, if you like, the instruction when you change at the control panel whether to switch the blade one way or t'other. It's not imperative you do that, but I would suggest you do it because it's a lot easier when you're sitting at a seat rather than trying to do it underneath a baseboard on a floor. Once I've done the soldering, the wires are on, the next thing that I would do is impact adhesive. Now this is just Yoo-hoo, other brands are available, and I smear a little bit of the Yoo-hoo, not a huge amount, right round the top of the base plate. Yoo-hoo will give you probably about 6 or 7 minutes manoeuvrability time to move this point motor about, so you need to go back underneath your baseboard. Again, put the point motor with the pin coming up through the hole, and obviously through the locating pin or the locating hole on the tie bar. And then what you want to make sure is you want to make sure that this motor here is sitting, if you like, square on or perpendicular to the actual point. So you don't want the point motor sitting like that or like that. You want it sitting square on, and that's why you use the Yoo-hoo, because you can you've got 5 or 6 minutes, which is more than enough time to actually manoeuvre the point into the correct position. Now, the way in which you can tell whether or not you've got the point motor in the right position is this tie bar. If I move it there, you'll see there's actually a bit of plate. It will go left to right. So if you have got the tie bar and the tie bar is off centre, then you know that this point motor is not square underneath, so you can move it about. Eventually you should be able to get it so that this tie bar is sitting in its natural position, with obviously the pin coming through the tie bar hole that you've chosen to use. Once you've done that and you're quite happy that everything is actually centred up, leave the point motor, leave the glue to set, leave it for 2-3 hours. When you come back, use your pin vise and drill a couple of pilot holes through the locating pin holes here on the actual base plate. And once you've done that, you can then easily screw in the 2 small brass screws that Pico supply with the actual base plate. So that's obviously the first, and that's the easiest method. And if you're using initial frog points, then that's probably the method to go for. If you're using an electro frog point, then you will need to fit an accessory switch. And there are 2 accessory switches. There is the PL13, which is basically just a single accessory switch which will fit to the bottom of the point motor. It glues on. You simply use the same impact adhesive and you glue it on, and the bottom of the pin here will go in to the top of the accessory switch, and it will slide a small brass plate in the accessory switch which will change the polarity of the points. If, on the other hand, you are wanting not only to change the polarity, but you want to have a control panel with lights on it, then you will need the twin accessory switch, which is this one here, which is the PL13. And this accessory switch doesn't go in the bottom of the point motor, it goes in the top. So again, the point motor will fit in through there. So you've got this sort of arrangement. And again, to fit it, you would obviously put some glue on these 2 parts here to obviously then put it underneath the baseboard. This is one of the reasons why I have used a 10mm hole. When you come to fit the PL15, there is a round piece of plastic here which has to sit on, it's a collar that has to sit on top of the pin from the point motor, and that collar, when it's moved left and right, it changes the micro switches, and it will switch both the polarity on the point, but it will also switch your panel lights. Now what I found was that if I had quite a small hole cut here on the point motor, for the point motor, I sometimes found that this collar didn't 100% travel its full length. it would travel maybe 96% of its full travel distance, but not 100%. And that meant that sometimes the polarity for the frog didn't get changed. So that was the reason I started to opt to drill a larger hole, because I found that if you did that, that I then didn't have any problem in terms of the polarity switching for the points. So as I say, that's the second method that you can that you'd use for fixing these point motors onto a Pico point. So I hope that that has been useful to you, Evan. As I say, don't take it from me that that's the correct way to do it. It's the way I've done it, and it's worked for me. Happy point fixing in the weeks and the months to come. Thanks for watching.